Driver Down the Road, written down by marvelous Marvin Mahaney. That's the indie blues, written by Distribution Blues again. I know the blues is you have to worry about it. You end up getting with these crazy things with feedback. And marvelous Marvin Mahaney presents. He's got a whole slate of shows coming up this month. He's bringing blues to the South Side. For more information, hit Marvin up on IG or Facebook. Marvelous Marvin Mahaney. Just remember Triple M. Hello and welcome back at season 2 of the Weekly Read, Raw and Uncut. I am Sean Reed. Don't forget to like when you are done watching the video. Subscribe at the bottom of the screen and comment right now. There are new videos on the craft, business, and art of indie movie making right here on the Jay Horton YouTube channel. I call him Jason. What's up, Jason?
Hey, how's it going?
That's going all right. How you doing?
I'm okay. Honestly, I'm trying to get my energy up. I'm a little low energy today, a little low key.
No worries. I got a little feedback to get me going there. Just that'll get you excited. I've got enough energy for you, both of us. So before we do anything, we got to talk about FilmHub again, which, by the way, we are not sponsored by FilmHub, but we would consider it. But getting back to what happened on December 31st. What happened, Jason? What happened?
Well, FilmHub instituted a new quicker pay system. In the past, after they received payments, they were holding it up to 2 quarters, meaning after they received payment, you might not have gotten paid for like 6 months, sometimes longer. But they were working all that time to update their system and make things faster. So now when they actually receive the payments, it goes into, your account almost instantly. There's a small processing period. I think it's less than a day. And then the money is available for you to transfer into your PayPal.
Yes. And boom, schlock, just as they said, December 31st, that money dropped.
Yeah, certainly.
That was really cool. And I think that along with that, FilmHub is really changing the whole model. Certainly platforms that pay monthly, like, there's obviously Amazon does, right? YouTube does. And then there are numerous ones that you can go on to the FilmHub platform and see when they pay. So you'll start to be able to get a sense of what you're going to be receiving when.
Right.
But it's also then giving you more exposure to those specialty SVODs like Fearless, which we saw a significant jump in.
I'd never even heard of that before.
Never even heard of it. I've read it. I think, I've taken a look at it. I think they're doing some interesting things and they've gotten some good, decent viewership. So it changes the whole game. I hope that FilmHub continues to lead the market in using technology to create a stronger links between content creators and distributors.
One thing,
Jason, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say about the new payment thing, I can already see the future confusion coming in. There is still a difference between insights and earnings. So platforms, say you're on Tubi and Tubi reports insights. They let FilmHub know how your film is doing. Like, I think it's once every 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean that the money has changed hands yet. So, they report an insight on the 1st. They might report another insight on the 14th, but you're not going to see that money till at least the end of the month, maybe later, depending on how often Tubi actually pays FilmHub. So if you go on your insight page and it says, hey, I just made $3,000, that $3,000 is not going to be in your account yet. That money doesn't get there until the platform actually pays, till the money changes hands. I just want to make that clear because I can already see it. Filmmakers are going to see their insight numbers and be like, well, they said instant pay. Where's my money? And it's
not that way.
It's not that way. Anyway.
You can find that entire interview with the CEO of FilmHub and Jason right here on the Jay Horton YouTube channel. And for those watching, feel free to ask a question on or off topic. And looks like we already have a question here. And it's from Mackenzie Alvarez. I've been working on a feature film. I'm going to be attending some film festivals before the feature is done. Do you think it makes sense to enter a piece of the film as a short film to promote it? Jason, you had something you thought you wanted to say about that.
Yeah. So they're working on a feature film, attending film festivals sorry, I was reading something. Do you think it makes sense to enter a piece of the film as a short to the film to promote it? Yeah, I mean, as far as promoting films, one of the things that I often do with features before and after they're released is, I will take clips or sequences, usually stuff that makes some kind of sense out of context, and I will start, posting those on social media. One thing I will say though, I am not super up on film festivals and rules. I don't do a lot of film festivals, and there might be some film festivals that frown on material like that being released before it premieres. I honestly wouldn't know.
Well, yeah, I think it really depends on whether then you're planning on entering that in that festival again, or there are a lot of factors I think in that, but you can certainly use a piece of a piece of something to just use it as a trailer. I mean, that's how I found Horrors of War and got involved with it, is because they'd taken it and shot and made a trailer of it, and took it to an indie club and was showing it around and put it out there. So that is one of the ways to do that. So anyway, let's keep it, I guess, keep it moving. Do we have any other
Just
questions, or is it
just a little shout out.
okay?
Hey Carolina, I appreciate the shout out, and good luck with Film Regard Productions.
All right, there we go. Today, we are looking at how to use numbers to create a new distribution strategy for 2022. First, let's start. I am the guy that would not be described as a mathematician or even someone that's competent in simple algebra. But as I started to find my way in production, I found myself drawn to information, whatever that was. Learning how to license music was perhaps one of the greatest ways a young coordinator at America's Funniest Home Videos and People. I had a budget. I was completely independent, and I was spending money. And that quickly gives you an exposure to the simple yet complex economy of Hollywood and the music industry, and the importance for tracking information. As we put ourselves forward, and we planned on putting in it, we do plan on, and actually, hopefully, I'm going to have that together next week, an episode on distribution and the history of it. Certainly, things have changed, but let's remember that we are merely defining distribution windows. In many ways, it's just how, if, and or ever, if you'll ever get to those windows. On our last show, 2021, we talked about traditional distribution versus DIY. This week, we're truly looking at strategic distribution, combine DIY and traditional, utilizing traditional distributors, digital marketplaces, and aggregators. By taking select returns from specific titles and specific categories, we can give ourselves a better chance to succeed. Jason, what's the most important part of looking at distribution from when you first started in the business to now?
Well, I think it's looking at your particular film, taking a real look at your film, like where does this fit into the marketplace? Like, especially if you're making a low budget film, like, is this film right for a large distributor, that maybe will do, theatrical or limited theatrical, and it's going to be all over the place. Like, is it really of that, I don't want to use the word caliber, but is it that type of movie? Is it a documentary like some of the ones I'm making, which are very niche, and they live their lives on, streaming platforms and Roku channels, and that's pretty much it. I don't do a lot of physical with those, and in that case, a larger distributor wouldn't make a lot of sense. And then, there's also, fractured rights, like you mentioned, where, you go to some place like FilmHub and you have that non-exclusive deal, and, you can still make those physical deals, or, foreign sales, or, whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, it's way more fractured, in many more ways to skin this cat than there used to be. I mean, I think that, there was always more of a likely, more of a way of just thinking it very simply when you were, for redemption, where it was like, okay, it's theatrical. We didn't get theatrical, so you go to direct to video, and that was it, direct to video, and then TV,
Yep.
and it's pay TV, and then it's regular TV, and then everything else,
Right.
and then video, right? So
Hmm.
you, and that was it, DVD. So, and you were, and if you got DVD, so actually it was what, it was pay TV, and then it was DVD. Well, actually it was theatrical, then it was DVD, then it was pay TV, then
Right.
it was possibly pay TV or cable, regular premium cable, but not cable. So like
Right.
USA or something like that, if you could get that. and then regular TV if you could get that. And that was only for the biggest stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You weren't selling those, but so there was always certain markets that were only available to certain projects. And so that's always going to be the case, that certain things fit in certain holes. So you have to already have a sense of a fair assessment. Also, and we're going to get into this deeper, but it's really about how much you're spending on it and how much you're expecting to make on it. And if you are not having necessarily an appropriate assessment of that project in the sense of what you're spending on it, when you start to think about what I can make on it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a really good point.
Well, it's something that we definitely have to get into deeper as we're going into this. For our perspective projects, it's really about how long you can keep a top earner earning or goose something along that isn't doing so well. But before you decide where it's going to go, you need to assign that number. And that's what I was talking about, that you think a project could make, or well, if it's making nothing, there's nothing to calculate. But there should be a management of in-house expectations. Jason, how do you try to manage expectations among your production partners?
Yeah. Well, and this is, it's easier for us to talk about, because, we have a library of films to, fall back on. So, we have whatever 45, 50 films in our library that, have been in the marketplace for the last few years, or, earning money. So, we can look at those returns and kind of know where the film's set. So if I'm doing, I'm getting ready to do a new horror movie, and, I'm back looking at all the returns on my horror movies. How much did this horror movie cost? How much did the other ones make? And, adjusting my budget and distribution plan for the movie accordingly.
Right. And so you're able to take that information and manage from the start, the budget, and build in things like what that's going to cost. Isn't it great to just know you're going to need to pay for if that's what you're going to have to do,
Right.
and have that in your budget. And this is why also I think that a lot of times in Hollywood that you found a protection of budgets. It's because really there is a secret sauce in that skill. I've gotten better and better in that over the years, as you know, because you've worked with me doing it a lot for different projects. And it becomes something that you start to know how to sneak money in to different places. You're like, I'll just put this little extra money over here, and always having a contingency and different things like that, but not wanting to run it off of that. So it's really important. So with the year ending, and we've started to see, as we mentioned, the end of the fiscal, it is the end of fiscal 2021. But not the end of fiscal 2021 payments. In some cases, we're not going to see the end of 2021 until, Jason, when are we going to see that? What's it's going to be? I think we'll be done seeing the last of it in
June.
Yeah, I want to say June. I think that's the last one.
Maybe even September, but something like that.
Yes. Do we have a new question up?
And yeah, we did have a question. Sorry.
Okay. If it's okay, let me screen down here. I can't see it over here. Hold on. Why don't you go ahead and read it?
This is from Caroline Alvarez. It says, I have a feature film. I'm planning the financial distribution plan, and being an independent film, I feel my best option is to go the SVOD route. Is that a fair way of thinking? How do you find that number when I feel like I can't compare my film's future success to box office numbers? And yes, no library of films to compare to. So the first question, so streaming distribution isn't just all SVOD. I do think SVOD is a great platform. And 1 year ago, I would have said SVOD is the highest paying across the board. Although in the last year, platforms like Tubi TV and IMDb TV, which are AVOD platforms, have kind of taken that spot. I can't.
I wouldn't say kind of. I think from our numbers that they
from our numbers in particular, they've definitely taken that spot. I would assume that there's some narrative filmmakers that still have stuff on Amazon that are doing real well, but I wouldn't know. But yeah, I would say in general, yes, AVOD has overtaken it, and most distributors are really hot about AVOD right now. So, but my point is I wouldn't limit myself to just one or the other. You like, especially, whether you're using a smaller distributor or, a distribution platform like FilmHub or, a sales agent or whatever it is, they're all going to have access to all of these different streaming platforms. And there's no reason not to be on as many as you can. Now, if your distribution strategy like involves windowing and you want to start on one, then that's fine. But eventually you'll widen out to everything.
Well, and it should every case should involve windowing. That's what we were just discussing. I mean, the idea is, so what's happening is that you don't want to say SVOD because you want a window. So you want to give yourself the opportunity, whether you get it or not, to, if it's something that's worthy of that, to at least consider it for four-walling it through, at least taking it through that route mathematically, is what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying? In a thought process, is this theatrical? Can I four-wall this and make it? Would it be worth it to put in the budget to four-wall it like we've done? Is it worth it to? Is this a festival thing that needs to be seen in the theater and get some laurels, like I've done, but not necessarily to help to get distribution, but whatever. So you're budgeting for these different things, and then you're looking at these windows. SVOD is one of the. It's not the last one, but it's one of the. You've got a few windows before that, so don't count yourself out of those windows. And then you've got AdVOD, and then you've got viewer supported. So you have YouTube and you have Vimeo as well. You have on demand that you can create and have on your own. That also, so you have so many different opportunities with that, which we'll talk a little bit more of that. So we're going to talk more, Carol, about this question in many ways. So,
well, and then the second part of the question, how do I find that number when I can't compare my film's success to box office numbers? And yeah, that is a really tough thing for independent filmmakers, because this information that I'm talking about, it's not available widely or publicly. Some filmmakers like myself will share that information, but even there's stuff that I can't share about my numbers, due to proprietary relationships or whatever. But what you can do, and what I did in the past before I had access to these numbers, is I would contact distributors, I would contact sales agents, and I would ask questions. And yeah, some of them are just going to straight shut you down and not tell you anything. There are others, though, that they like to talk. They like to be transparent. They like to inform filmmakers. You just have to find them, or talk to other producers that have made movies at a similar level, and just, reach out, find them on social media, find them through IMDb, whatever, and just reach out. I think you'd be surprised at how much, certain people will share.
Well, and also it's that, and basically you should be, and there are going to be times when it's easier to get that type of relationship started. Really, when you're looking to kind of reach out and try to make those types of contacts, is the best times is during marketplaces. So AFM and CAN, those are really designed for you to be reaching out and meeting them, and they're much more open to just taking kind of those exploratory meetings or conversations and saying, hey, this is what we think it would make, or this is something we would be interested in, or something like that. So, or during the year, but as you start to develop your relationships and you start to work with people, you start to have more and more people that you can just share your numbers with. Or there are a lot of resources out there that folks are not looking at as much, that have, like Dear Producer, which I was spending my time on today. Dear Producer. This report is Distributors Fact Sheet. We spoke to a dozen distributors, and this is what they want from a film. So you don't even have to contact them to get at least a basic idea of what these specific ones. And this was, from a year. It's a little bit older. They have a newer report, but there are all kinds of reports like that. You just have to do a little bit of digging. And the funny thing is here's a then and now. Back in the day when you were looking for that kind of information, when I was trying to get Redemption started, you could not find that. You had to have a subscription to Daily Variety or something like that to even get a shadow of that information. And then you're only looking at the big movies, and you're only looking at theatrical. They're not giving out video. You can't get TV. So it used to always be a shell of those numbers, and we'll talk more about that too. So moving along, and we'll see when we get, we'll bring up some more, but let's see. It's where were we? So if you're going with a traditional distributor, you're looking at them asking longer terms, more fees, and bottom line is they're going to pay slower. The bigger they are, the slower they are. But Jason, we're starting to think about this, and you mentioned it a little bit more. When starts to be that time when even somebody like us starts to go back towards a big distributor like a Gravitas who's contacted us? And by the way, I don't know the name of the company, but we got contacted this week by another place who actually offers advances as well. So I'll have to figure that out. Or a vision, a smaller one. So when do we start to consider that? What are you thinking with that? Or you think this year is something that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I think I think it starts kind of as a budgetary question. And, at the budget level that, we're mostly making, our documentaries, for example, like I can't see the bulk of them, being, a larger distributor, although you never know, like something might just turn out, really well and could break that ceiling. And I'm always open to exploring it. But I start to look at more traditional distribution when the budgets start getting over, I would say, like 35,000, and that's a really arbitrary number. But there's a certain level of production quality and value that money does buy. And I feel like it's when you start getting over that point that you become more attractive to larger distributors. Because the other thing to keep in mind is we have a lot of movies that probably could have went to a larger distributor, but is this little movie with a larger distributor going to get support from them really, or is it just a library stuffer? And then you got to look at, well, if it's just a library stuffer, are the fees and whatnot worth getting on those few extra platforms? And I'd say there's probably examples where it would be, but I would say in general, no.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking really appropriately at our specific library, yes, I would say that most of those titles, except for maybe if we just pulled out extracted maybe Supernatural, and if just based on what we see from those, I think that people would actually not be stuffing with those. I think they'd be looking to make more, as we've seen as a result. I mean, the best way to know that the market is interested is when they start calling you about things.
That's true.
So we have had calls, and we're starting to get more contact about those specific titles. The Bigfoot stuff and the paranormal stuff. So that seems to be right now what they're just looking for. And I think it's just because of there's probably a level of quality that we can also match and expectation. So of course we've already gotten some great live questions from the people watching live, so feel free to keep asking on our off topic. So a lot of the things we were discussing are going to appear to be at the end of the process. And I've said this before, end of the process decisions and discussions. But really, how we're going to get to this project distributed should be a thing a filmmaker or producer is thinking about from the very beginning of the project, almost to the point of being alarmingly, wakingly an obsession until it's figured out. Jason, how was your thinking about projects evolved over the years about that, finding audience and distribution, starting projects then and now?
Oh, definitely. It's changed so many times. When I started, I was very naive. I had, I'm going to be a, A-list director, megastar director mentality. I thought when I made my first movie, that it was, which was a $5,000 horror movie, by the way. I thought it was going to go to like a film festival, and it was going to get like either bought there or a distributor was going to see it, and it was going to be released by Lionsgate. Now, I wasn't so naive that I thought it was going to be like a wide theatrical release, but I thought limited theatrical, we're going to make a couple $100,000 off of it. That's what I thought. And that was not so. And it did get distributed, but not like that.
Well, it's and so it's almost fair to be, it's almost impractical to think at that time, looking back at what we know about the economics of the box office at the time, that at that quality level, it's not worth it for them to make a print.
Yeah.
right?
But yeah,
Right?
and it just
In
goes
some
to
level.
it just
Yeah.
goes to show you like how little filmmakers think about that side of the process when they're
Hmm.
starting out, especially younger filmmakers. I mean, I was in my 20s and I didn't know anything about the business. You know, I went to a film school, I didn't learn one thing about the business, you know, nothing. You know, I
Hmm.
learned how to frame a shot, how to edit a thing, how to tell a story, but they don't set you up for the business of Hollywood at all, or at least they didn't then. And I had no clue. It took me many years to figure it out, many, you know, and more than one movie.
I think I was very fortunate on that level. I think that's something that on some level I was spared, although it was very difficult because, I had a lot of expectation, especially for Redemption, which it definitely had a, bigger budget than yours. And I took a longer time in a process to make it, and certainly had that expectation. But, once we didn't get that, what I think then happens is that then you have to measure your budgetary levels if you don't get something. And I
Yeah.
think that that's like where Redemption was. Like, it should have been, it was scaled back already, based on budget. That was always meant to be, I think, a $2 million budget. And
Mm,
I scaled it back to whatever I ended up making for 124. So then, scaling it back to, maybe it should have been scaled back to 60,
mm.
and that would have been like, and then it may have been had the right flavor a little bit more, because sometimes keeping it small, certain things, it has a more transfer it's into the marketplace, and that seems to be a magic number for black projects. So I see we've got Alonzo Jones on there with some comments. Do you want to read that for Alonzo?
Sure. Alonzo says, I have no questions right now. Just sitting, listening, and learning. I do have a comment. I appreciate you guys sharing your expertise, especially when you don't have to. I think everybody who is in the indie world, in front of and behind the camera, should subscribe and share your channel. You provide a great wealth of knowledge for free. Thanks and keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
I know that's super
Jones.
nice, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you,
appreciate
thank you
that.
very nice. Is
But
that when
there's
we
no money.
discuss these types of places, is that fees will sometimes, if somebody is charging you, and I'll just be clear, some of these places are charging every single film that they have in their library when they go to a marketplace, they're charging you $2,000 per film.
Right.
Okay. And there's 4 or 5 or 6 marketplaces they're going to. How in the hell, excuse my language, is there $2,000 of expenses for an individual film for every single thing, unless you're taking individual meetings, building posters, and having an individual table and somebody's working for it on
Yeah.
every single marketplace? So that's that. I mean,
It's
sorry,
just
whoever's charging that kind of rate, but that's a ripoff.
that's
And
a total,
that's
especially at that level. You know, like if you had a
absolutely.
$2 million movie, yeah, it probably does take, you know, a lot more than 35 grand in support.
Hmm.
But you know, if you have an independent movie and you've made it for, you know, fuck, even oh, excuse me, even $60,000, and somebody is charging you like a, you know, they have a 25 or $30,000 sales cap,
Hmm.
run away. Like,
Yeah.
like you'll never make a profit on that movie.
Essentially not. And I mean, at least back in the day, like when you looked at like a Redemption, at least like there was a minimum guarantee. But
Mm,
once you miss the theatrical window and you're not earning off of that, and if you're making a black project that doesn't necessarily at the time they said do well foreign, then you're starting to have problems where you're earning it. But then maybe you get cable, like we had Stars in Black. And then we got some foreign sales, which they said you didn't get foreign sales, but we got foreign sales, because you have to try to get these sales. You have to actually put things in front of people and try to get the sale. So, it's a really good thing. And of course, new split right models will probably need to be more of an option to hold on to your YouTube, your Vimeo rights. Jason, what are you thinking about that with the holdback
yeah,
rights?
yeah. I personally, and this is just an opinion, and I might not be 100% correct here, but I believe that with distribution platforms like FilmHub making the split rights so easy for independent filmmakers, that
Hmm.
other smaller distributors will start eventually following suit. You know, because I just don't see how they'll survive in the long run without it. Because the landscape is changing, you know, and they're going to have to adapt. And you know, like 2 years ago, if somebody would have even mentioned the idea of premiering a movie on YouTube, I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's retarded. Even if you had a monetized channel, why would you do that? It's the very last place a movie would end up. But however, in this day and age, depending on your project, and I'm not saying it's right for every project, I'm not even saying it's right for most projects, but there are projects where it is right. Like for example, if I right now today had a Bigfoot documentary done, I would window open it on YouTube before it went to FilmHub. Well, let me take that. I would submit it to FilmHub and then I would do the window, but it would take it 2 months to get up on FilmHub anywhere, and during that 2 months, it would be exclusive on YouTube. And I would absolutely try that right now. And I'm basing that off of I have a Bigfoot documentary on my channel that just started to like go viral-ish. So it's done 50,000 views in the last like week, and money wise, like it's doing, I'll just tell straight up, it's a 761 CPM, $7.61 per 1,000 monetized views. For the last 3 weeks, the last 2 weeks, it's earned 400 and I want to say $86. And it could be somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 for the month, just on YouTube. So yeah, I would try that with a little small movie and then open up wider. Because the other thing that I'd say in general that's true about windowing in the streaming landscape is it's like, or at least once you hit the SVOD AVOD realm. I'm not talking about the initial window if you're going to do transactional, but when you're talking about that secondary one, like it doesn't hurt you, to be on multiple ones. Like you can be on all those SVOD and AVODs at the same time.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't want to be once you're in, because they're now individual platforms. There are even things that are working platforms within platforms where like Roku will take it, but then they'll have an individual channel within that they'll put it on because they realize that the traffic is different for that. So kind of moving forward with that, with thinking some of this thinking, theatrical or on demand at this phase, if you can four-wall a project in a major setting and then partner for an on-demand window, a key element in this formula is to have the distribution costs in the budget. So it isn't a scramble to get deliverables together. For on-demand, you're still going to need a larger service to place the film. And a lot of work on that delivery is normally handled would normally be handled by the distributor is now being handled by you. Almost 99% of larger platforms require a distributor or aggregator to place your film with them anyway. So, Jason, how has this changed over the last couple of years? Do you think that there will be another Amazon where you can go direct? Or are we done with that?
Yeah, as far as I think Amazon will be the last of its kind like that. I think it was an experiment. They tried it. It was really cool. I would love it if somebody else did it, like a Hulu or a Netflix or something, but I do not see it happening. I think it was kind of a once in a lifetime thing. And now that it's kind of done 10 years from now, older filmmakers will be talking about the good old days of, being able to put movies straight up on Amazon. But no, I don't think a major streamer like a Amazon or a Netflix or a Hulu or Apple TV, I don't think they will be doing it. At least not in the subscription based.
Got it. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. 'Cause I mean, certainly YouTube has its own YouTube television, and so it has kind of the separate. You can upload. It built itself off of the community,
Right.
And now has its own TV division that kind of has it functioned in a way. Not that these things are necessarily over there, but it functions as a platform that gives you an opportunity to monetize yourself, making things that are appropriate for that. So it is one place. I mean, and it was before Amazon in the sense of you being able to do it. And it's interesting. A lot of filmmakers like us in our generation are more discovering it now in longer forms, that it became more of a long, because remember, it used to be a much more of a shorter, everything had to be shorter. And here we are doing a live hour, so, everything changes on different things. I think it's just about a need. So Jason, let's take a step back for a moment. Jason, do this with me. Take a step back for a moment. Okay, now step forward. Now put your right foot in. Okay, no. Okay. Don't forget about film festivals and film marketplaces. I just, I didn't mean to look past them, but I did a little. And it's just as easily to have a 4-wall budget in your budget as you could have to build a film festival budget. Include some cast members, travel, and marketing materials. But to me, it's like, why am I marketing for the film festival, ultimately, my film, and then that audience, when I could just be testing the actual audience and selling tickets or putting it up somewhere and just actually doing it? I see the value. And of course, for me, I think of the, especially there are certain specific festivals with Black projects that I would now more accurately want to go to, just because of the actual value that is with all of the different things that have changed now in the world. But still, it's the same. Give me a package and go make a sell and sell a ticket and get the money yourself. Although I've enjoyed my past festival experiences, and I most enjoy the film festival / marketplace being the granddaddy of them all, being Cannes. If you can make that trip once, which I'd like to make that trip a few more times, but if you're going to make one trip, that's the trip. Jason, festival, marketplace, or none of the above?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have their place and value. I personally haven't seen a lot from them. I loved the Cannes trip has a life experience. But I'll backtrack that a little bit. There were some connections that were made there that were valuable and that paid off in years to come.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, and the way things are changing, like I don't know what the future holds for them, for the in-person film festivals. I don't know. But as far as like distribution goes, at least on the stuff I've worked on, I've made no use of the festival side of it.
Well, I know that Redemption did did go to actually the Cannes. I was thinking about going, but didn't. It was in the marketplace, and so that was something I would have liked to have been there for, just because I imagine that experience that early, and then years later, I probably would have gone a few more times, probably just on a sales side, because you start making those sales contacts, and that's one of the things from a producing side. And we'll talk more about this, maybe I'll do some segments, or we'll talk more about it and show that this is really all sales. A lot of people can have a halfway decent product, but they can't get it to the right individual. They can't package it to tell them something. So we have a comment here that Jason's going to go ahead and read, because it's easier for you to see it.
Mackenzie Alvarez says, how do you feel about Cobra Kai? They released originally on YouTube. Now it's used on Netflix. Is YouTube the future? Is this a sign to build legs on YouTube first? So I'll say, first off, like Cobra Kai is a massive outlier. That it's not the typical path that films take. It has happened before. There have been web series that have been picked up by HBO or Netflix or probably Hulu. That
Insecure was a web series.
Yeah, that start on YouTube. But we could just think of 2 or 3. I'm sure there's more, but they're outliers. I don't think it's a typical path. That said, I do think YouTube is a good place to build your legs, to gain some recognition, to start building your audience. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I think with anything, I think that YouTube has become a place where you're building an audience, whether you're like my friend Chad Kapper, who builds kits for drones and builds those out and has a YouTube channel that teaches you how to do that. Or whether you're, doing something like this, where we're doing, we're talking about filmmaking, but also ultimately it's kind of part of our art film as well, that we're making media, or, whatever it is you're looking for to learn. So I see another comment down there. Go ahead and read it.
Mr. Burger Show says, good afternoon, gentlemen. Have discovered many things that I'll try. Thanks, man. Good to see you back, man. Hadn't seen you around in a while.
And we have one from Joe Turi. You want to read that one?
Yeah, Joe Turi says, "Hi, is there an average percent of the film budget that you use towards marketing? Does that number change for micro budget films? Also, big props to Jay's webcam. Looks good. Oh, thank you. So yes, it definitely changes depending on your budget. You got to remember with micro budgets, I've said this a bunch of times, but everything on a micro budget film is exponential compared to a larger budget. Smaller or bigger. So if you're making a movie for $20,000, the typical 30 to, was it 40 or 50% on studio stuff for marketing,
Well,
like,
if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, you want
yeah,
$100 million to make a movie, and you want $100
$100
million
million
for
in
marketing
P&A, right?
because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
has he has a marketing degree from Pepperdine, and that's what
right,
it says. If
right,
you
right,
want to make $100 million, you probably need to spend $100 million
right, right. But
to make
on,
that, and then that's how they're at $200 million. That's
yes,
how those movies get to $200 million.
yeah, yeah,
It's $100 million to make the movie and $100 million to market the movie, and that's why they started splitting those budgets between two studios.
right, right, right.
So, and what, Joe? My camera doesn't look good. I don't look good. What?
No,
What's going on here? I look bad.
no. So the point being, though, on an independent film, say your budget's $20,000, 50% of $20,000 doesn't make sense. It
No,
doesn't
it
make sense
absolutely. Well,
financially.
it's
So
not going to be 50. Yeah,
yeah, definitely not.
it's yeah.
Me personally, like if the budget's under 10, uh, if I spend 1,000 on marketing, that's 10% out of 10,000. But if I was 20, I might take that up to 20%. And again, it depends on the movie and how. Because like on a micro budget film, you're going to be doing a lot of the marketing yourself anyway. So like how plugged in are you to that audience? If you are super plugged into that audience and you have a big following and this and that, maybe you don't need that 20%. Maybe you can make it work with 10. But if you're making those kind of decisions, take a long, hard, and honest look about where you are and your reach. Don't naively think, oh, I have 5,000 Facebook friends, so if 40% of them do this, 40% of them are not going to do that. So, you know what I mean? Just, be realistic about where you are.
There you go. As you
Yeah.
look at your numbers, and we're getting to the nitty-gritty stuff here, you're going to see patterns. Generally, your first quarter through the first year is your strongest earning for a project. But you also see spikes. They might be seasonal. All horror do better during Halloween season. If you got a Christmas movie, it's going to do better during Christmas. Or it might be a new platform. Jason, what's your key? What's the key to looking at the quarters for projects and its earning life?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
Well, what's your key when you look at first quarters and their earning lives of projects? What are you trying to accomplish in that first quarter and that first year for a project?
So what I've found, and honestly, this is changing,
Mm-hmm.
but in previous years, I've found that those first 90 days of release were usually, like, percentage wise, like the biggest part of a movie's earning life cycle. Like it would earn more in those 3 months than it would in any other 3 months throughout the course of its life. Now, it might eventually pass those 3 months collectively, but you'll never have another concentrated 3 months like that in general. But what I'm finding in, even in just the last 6 months is almost all of our, major earners are older titles. It's we're seeing spikes in movies that are 2, 3, 10 years old that are making more like now than they ever did. So things are changing, and I think it's all algorithmic.
Algorithmic, and I think that it's how platforms are presenting things and where people are finding them. Do you know what I mean? Like you can have like a Fearless where we had barely even heard about it, but yet it's got a huge following and already has a lot of people going through it already, and so it becomes something of a you know a figure, where you go through it. And I see that comment, but we're wrapping up our stuff with our prediction, so we can get to that in a second. But let us
Okay.
wrap up our show here. And if we can, we'll get to it. So, we're looking at that. It's easy to identify the bigger earners in your catalog, but also look for those that have been steady with little to no drop off. Steady earners help pay the bills while you keep waiting for a hit. Jason, how did you bide your time those early days when you have like 10 hits? You gotta, you're building it up. You've got these different smaller projects. You're building a library. What's the key to that?
You mean like into making it between them, like until they were earning
Make
money?
it, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean,
I mean, for me, it was, it was day jobs and editing. I mean, I honestly, I mean, in my entire career, I've only just gotten to the point in the last couple of years where I can start, just basically looking at the income from movies. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So just at some point, you're just it's a build up, and you're gonna have to kind of ride that out. Another key factor is ROI. You've heard it, return on investment. Is it low cost, but perhaps has another benefit, like the Marauders documentaries, Jason, where they're actually a benefit because, and maybe they're going to turn into something later, but they're more of a marketing tool.
Yeah, totally. Like, I've made 4 micro budget Marauder documentaries. They're all, 60 to 70 minutes long. And each one of them in the marketplace has earned, dollars, like dollars total. But, I repurpose clips of that for this YouTube channel. It's helped to grow this YouTube channel. It's earned more money, on the clips than the actual movies have. But, I like having them out, and they help draw people, basically to this channel. So I definitely don't regret doing any of them. I try to do, like one a year, and it's, shoot, it makes me have to create 10 or 12 less videos for for this channel.
Well, and it's part of the brand. It's the brand in itself, It's also a way to reach out to people and to be talking to people, and we're talking marketing in that thing. So then that's an ROI. That's a return on that. Just like, if you're seeing that some way, just like with social media, it's tough because you're marketing to it, but you don't necessarily see a tangible return. So maybe you should be doing something else. Another factor, of course, is not a new project, but how old it is. That's what we're talking about. It's just earning 10, 20 years later. You see some things again, it'll earn. So what have we learned about the life of a project? Do I keep saying it's going to happen? Do I know? And here's something that we're always kind of going back and forth with. I'm always going, dude, the life of the project is the life of the project. As long as you own everything, that means the life of the project will be dead. The project's still alive. It could still make money. So that's my thought process on it. What about you?
Yeah. They never stop. I keep working on them, keep promoting them. Yeah, they're, I mean, I have 15-year-old movies that are earning money today.
So that's one of the other keys. Now, this does get tricky, and it's easier to do this when you've done multiple projects like we have. You don't have to rely on IMDb, Daily Variety, Hollywood Reporter, and other sources for numbers. Problem is, you will never know the real numbers, which is why it's often difficult to get your hands on a budget or a cost report. Jason, how reliable were your estimates back in the day when you put together a comparison chart for your movies on budgets and earnings?
They were so off. They were so off. I got the first number projections that I ever got a hold of were off a site called Film Specific. And, I don't want to, just, crap on Film Specific. It was a very good site. They had a lot of good information, but those sales estimates were just insane. And not, I mean, the person that ran the site was a sales agent. She was pulling it from experience, but I mean, I don't know how long those numbers sat there or whatever, but by the time I was looking at them, not realistic at all. And it was really hard to find that data anywhere else.
And there's really no note behind it when you see that, like, when you have these kind of final numbers that you're giving, you're not seeing how those territories were broken down and what they're earning by those territories. Normally, we're usually saying just this number, right? And they don't necessarily give you a breakdown. So that's also something to be looking for, to ask, especially when you're working with these bigger distributors like a Gravitas. That's what they offered us. It's like, we'll show you, we know that this is why we're calling you, because we know that this will make this amount of money, and that's why we're looking for it. That's always a good signal too, to maybe consider doing something bigger. But even with that, we are thinking like, well, maybe one for them and one for us. Do you know what I mean? That way we get all the money. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty gritty. We're at the magic time for those of Hold Down. So this year, New Cinema Tribe and Zootiflix are going to make more documentaries in the supernatural category. Jason, tell us why.
Because they've performed collectively better than the other documentary topics, as a whole. And I'm going to double down on some of that. I still want to explore different topics, but the paranormal stuff has been really good to us, and it's been on a real uptick over the last 3 months.
And it's ROI, even compared, and we're not even talking about a lot of money around here. But it's ROI in terms of some of them. It can pay off with even just with the lowest of budgets, which is, something just with care, with actually just really putting some care in it and not having to do. This year, New Cinema Tribe is going to make more narrative, specifically Black films. There has to be, I've seen a different pattern in the research that I've been doing for new Black films doing especially well on Tubi and as well on Pluto, new and old, especially in specific patterns. Jason, you know a little bit about Black films.
Yeah, I've made a lot, and I represent several, and I can't really give the titles, but I've seen movies in this genre earn $17,000 in a month. I've seen titles in this genre earn $30,000 to $40,000 in a month. Now, of course, collectively, those averages are much lower, but in general, it's a very good genre to go into right now.
Actually, we've seen titles earn, not ours, not anybody we're associated with, but we've seen that they are cracking the 100 plus.
Yeah, for the quarter.
The quarter. So that there is, there is a possibility. And this year, Zootiflix is going to make more narrative, specifically make more horror. Jason?
Well, I'm doing one. I have one planned called Craving that I'm going to be running a crowdfunder on in February, and I'll be talking a lot more about that on this channel. But I'm honestly kind of psyched to do more smaller drama flicks with other directors.
All right. And that's a good start. So there'll be more narrative in general, I think, from with us. And that is what we were talking about this week. So hopefully you guys got some insight into how we think about our numbers. Next week, we'll be looking at the history of distribution. I think that's going to be fun. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me know if you have topics you would like us to cover here on the Weekly Read. Jason, what do you have coming up this week on the Jay Horton YouTube channel?
Oh man, I couldn't tell you. Oh no, I have I have a shit. I don't even know what's going on. You know what? I don't know. I got stuff going on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. I couldn't tell you.
He got stuff Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. Okay. And do you know how they get in touch with you?
Yep. At DJ Horton, pretty much everywhere. And my website, www.thejhorton.com.
Hit me up on IG at Sean Alden Reed or New Cinema Tribe, or directly through my company website, newcinematribe.com. Also, we are going to have, we're planning on launching February 1st. On World One TV will be available on Roku, iOS, Android, Fire Stick. So that's coming, big library. And if you're interested in getting on there, please contact me. There are a lot of our Zootiflix New Cinema Tribe titles already there. I just haven't been hawking it because we're not on the other places, so I didn't want to sell it, but we're starting to see some buzz on that. So be here next Friday, January 14th, 2022 at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for the Weekly Read. Thanks, Jay Horton, for the use of his channel. And, of course, thank you for watching. And you know what? I'm out.